What's up, Cobra? Hey, how you doing? What's up, everybody? I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes here, let people pile in, and hope everybody had a phenomenal time. It was an awesome fucking week. So much fun. Alright, just giving everybody a little time to get in here. I know it was a little impromptu, kind of late. There are a couple things I wanted to go over today. Let me get some water. So obviously futures are still open. They'll be open for a little bit longer. As you can see, there's a couple setups here that I drew that I wanted to kind of go over. But before we go over any of that, I want to go over a couple different entries here from earlier in the week. This is Thursday, so I'd like to talk about this in this whole setup here, right? So this is Thursday. Here is the 9:30 open right here, and I wanted to really kind of talk about some of the price action the last couple of days. It's been pretty weird, pretty strange, not the normal price action that we're used to kind of seeing. Honestly, it's been great. Today was probably the weirdest day, and we'll cover a few of the mistakes I made today and how you can handle it a little better without any issues. Obviously, today was Opex, so it was a very strange day, and as we saw, it ripped to the sky and just basically never stopped. And the whole point of that was because market makers needed to make all those puts expire worthless, right? That was their job, is to make your puts expire fucking worthless. That's their job. And so the main thing we'll talk about in that is kind of how to go about handling all that, and how a couple of the mistakes I made and could have traded better. I ended up green on the day, which is really nice. Awesome week. Fantastic week overall. So for me, this setup here on Thursday was one of the best setups ever. This is the 5-minute chart on ES, and this is the teal line is the 200 EMA, and the blue line is VWAP, right? So going into open, I like to wait a little bit after open to kind of figure out what we're doing. We have this key level of 3706.5. This is kind of just been a smaller, recent level. It's not necessarily a major level, but it's a recent level. And as you see, price action really respected it on both sides, up and down. And this setup here, when you see it kind of come down and touch this stack, a VWAP 200 EMA stack, and bounce and start breaking through this previous level, including the previous pivot high, is a phenomenal risk reward to go long. And there really wasn't a reason to sell. You probably might have gotten scared of these wicks right here at 37.15, which has been a major level, was again today. But there really wasn't a reason to sell. And if you held your thesis here of going along somewhere down in here, or even right up here on the break, there really wasn't a reason to sell this, right? And you could have caught this whole move all the way up just by chasing. This is probably where a lot of people, including myself, this is where I got stopped in profit, was right in here, right? I got a late entry in here. This was a phenomenal setup. Got a late entry. I was actually right above here. I didn't get this. I got this right up here and rode it all the way to 37.35, which was an awesome one. I got stopped out. It came up here and then came back, and I got stopped out dead even, 37.35, and it kept going. That's fine. That's cool. I already made my money. And then I played the backside of this, and I'll show you on the next screenshot how I played the backside of this, and why it's really important to kind of keep this in mind as you're playing, right? As you're making these decisions. So this is how I played that next one. So this is how I looked at the setup, right? I drew it before this big candle came down. I drew these two, and I drew this, right? And then this big candle came down, and then this candle kind of confirmed that was still the range, right? That this is still a valid TA line. And then you see this wedge here failed. This is actually a falling wedge, which is usually bullish. But just because that's true doesn't mean it's not going to fail. So when we failed the 37.25, I actually went short here with my risk a little higher, and I wrote it down to about the 200 EMA where I got out, the 5-minute 200 EMA. And as you see, we kept going and just kept going. I did get another entry here at 3700 failure, which is on this 5-minute candle close. I just went short, and my stop loss was a little bit higher. I think I actually put a 4-point stop up here, so it would have been closer to up in this range right up here, and it just melted me down. I took my profit 368 or 3685. Obviously we kept going, but I was kind of just done with the day, and didn't really have a reason to continue trading at that point, right? So I had already made the decision. I caught this move, I caught this move, caught a little bit right here, and I was done. There's no reason to keep trading. Absolutely no reason at all to keep trading. But this was a phenomenal setup on Thursday. Sorry, on Thursday it was really good. And this was kind of your downtrend break afterwards. So this is how you could have played this breakout here. You could have ridden this all the way down, put your trend line here, and just ridden this whole chunk. So once we broke this and broke over the 3675 level, you could have ridden this for a nice 10-point move upwards, even though we had these fake out candles here. There was never a reason for you to get out of the trade, right? Because your stop loss is down here. So there was never really a reason to get out of the trade. And you could have ridden this up here, in which case, you got to remember that we're in a downtrend, so any kind of bounce that we get is not going to be too violent, right? There's not going to be a lot of violence happening in that trade. So that's how I played the Thursday. There were just kind of some setups I really wanted you to burn into your head, especially this one. And then obviously your downtrend break here, good risk reward to go long and just let it play out for about 5-10 points, right? You don't really need to aim for anything more than 5-10 points. If you rode it from 3676 up to 3681 and you got out, fucking amazing. That was you just got to remember the trend is down, bounces are going to be short-lived. Take your profit, get out. It's okay if it keeps going. Just take your profit and get out. And this was a setup that just happened today, actually. And I'll show you right after I show you Matt's beautiful face. We like Matty eyes. Let's go. And this setup here is on the 1 minute chart on ES. I'll show you what it looks like on the 5 minute in just a minute here. This setup is great. You could have gone and drawn from here. It didn't line up quite as neat, and that's okay. It's something to be aware of, that you don't always have to draw from this pivot. This is still a valid setup, right? So here's our pivot. We knew that if we broke lower than this, right? So if we broke this trend line here, the odds are that we'd probably go and try and test something down in here, the 3740 range right in there, or again back down to 3735, right? Good risk reward here. If it broke to the upside, good risk reward to go long, and you could have caught this entire move because you never really had this, some consolidation here, but there's really no reason to sell. This applies to everything except for 0 DTE. If you're playing 0 DTE on a stock right here and you see this happen, especially towards the end of the days, you notice this is 3 p.m. Eastern right here. This will chop up your price. You have to pretty much only be riding lottos. So when you get this breakout on your options here, this will be your time to get out, is these candles right here. Afterwards, you just have to only hold lottos and runners because you can get theta burned right here. Obviously, you'll be playing like 3 DTE because you'll be playing Monday's contract since today is Friday. You can't be playing, or you shouldn't be playing 0 DTE at this moment. A lot of brokerages won't even let you. So you'd be a little bit safer here, but you'd still catch this beautiful move. And there really wasn't a reason to sell. Here's your back test, rip upwards. You should be out on the spike knowing that we're nearing the end of the day right there, right? So let's go in and talk about the larger time frame on ES real quick. Again, this is going to be a relatively shorter session. I'm not going to really dive super deep into it because there's a couple emotional topics I wanted to discuss and some of the mistakes I made that I want to discuss. So ES, which is basically SPY, it's futures, S&P 500. Notice how we did essentially a 4-bar play, kind of a sloppy 4-bar play because this bar usually needs to be this bar right here. So this bar is usually this bar. We had these 2 great days, we had 2 great down days, and then this really epic day today for Opex, right? I personally got too timid on it because I think I just let the fear and all that other shit kind of, get in my way. Something that you shouldn't do because we know that everybody's loaded to the tits with puts, right? Short as fuck, especially after this day, especially after the failed breakout here. Just loaded to the tits. I'll get into HYS. What are my thoughts about VIX today? I'll get into that in just a minute. So the daily is a 4-bar play essentially. They wanted to basically make all that stuff expire worthless, and they did. They made all those put chasers and shorts expired worthless. All my losing trades today were puts or were shorts. There's no reason to be shorting today at all. This is that wedge I showed you right here on the right here, and on the 1 minute right here is the wedge I showed you earlier for today. And as you see, it just kind of kept going. Anything above 3760 is a major struggle zone, as you can see up here, 3675 on the hourly. So let's take a look at the hourly. The hourly was really beautiful the whole week. Here's the open, right? Here's our little gap right here from the Monday close, the Monday overnight. There's very rarely do we get gaps like this. This was huge resistance, turned into nothing because we cleared it, kept going, and now we developed this awesome falling wedge situation. And on Opex, we just cucked everybody. So as you can see, the 37.65 range, 0.75. I'm not going to correct that because I'm too lazy, because obviously it's ticks are 0.25 per tick on ES. What we're looking for now is we really got to clear this range up here. Got to clear this whole range right up in here and get all this taken care of right there. So we got to get this taken care of and get up to this 37.88 to keep going and to go push up to this 3800, which is actually my target. My target right now is 3700 or 3800 rather. 3800. It shows up on the daily major level. 3820 will confirm our breakout on the daily. So this goes for all stocks. This doesn't matter if you're trading futures or not. So you can see roughly this 38.20. We clear this, and then obviously this little tick up here, like 38.33. You clear that, the odds are we're probably going to go back up to 3900 pretty rapidly. We're going to go test 3900, 3910, 3915 range very rapidly. So keep your eye on that. If you're looking at, even if you're playing SPY or AMD or any of these other stocks, it's completely irrelevant. You just got to pay attention to what's happening in the overall market, because these will drag everything with them. And as you see, wow, I really had stuff charted up there. Let's clear that out. As you can see, even Netflix, they had this awesome gap up, and the last 3 days they've just, especially today, like look at that today. So this is just Netflix. Let's go take a look at, even again Microsoft. Let's clear these out. I don't want any of these. Microsoft, huge green day. Apple, huge green day. I was using this as an example. I can clear that out. Huge green day. So everything today, you could have pretty much just slapped anything, and you would have gone. I think chips were probably actually, their semis rather. The semis were actually some of the weaker ones today. Yeah, not as much umph. Definitely still really good. Not as much. But you look at Microsoft and Apple, which are the big dogs, they went crazy. I think somebody mentioned Amazon at 1.2, right up here on the daily level at 120. So we break this 120, huge green day. If we break 120, the odds are we're probably going to go test 125. As you notice, they're doing powers of 5. Works very, very well in the bigger picture. So it's fantastic. A lot of green days. We're going to watch all these kind of stocks, including /ES, to break higher here, and see if we can really start getting into this bullish Momo into the end of October, which is where we're at right now. Historically speaking, these next 2 weeks are pretty bullish. What we're looking for, and this is just historical, so it could be completely opposite. What we're looking for is going to be the second quote-unquote week, starting from the 6th of November all the way up till basically the 20th of November. These weeks are right here are kind of a strange segment of time that you need to be careful with. They're usually a little weaker, and then we rally into the end of the year. Usually. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's usually what happens. So keep in mind that the bigger picture of what's actually happening. So let's let me get rid of this wedge here real quick so that I don't forget, and then I'm going to get rid of this one which showed up on the 5-minute. I want to show you some 5-minute levels real quick, just to show you kind of how price action reacted the past couple days to all the key levels I've been posting in the futures chat. And for this purposes, we're going to just remove the studies to make it a little cleaner. All right, so here was our open today. I want to kind of cover this right here. Here was our open right here, 9:30, where we had a lot of this indecision. My mistake here was being too timid, right? My biggest mistake here was being a little too timid to play the way it should be. My thesis was very simple and held up very, very well. My thesis was that if we clear these 2 candles, I like to wait off of open. I'm not going to slap right off of open. I want to kind of, especially on Opex, I want to figure out what they're going to try to do, because they may just fake everybody out to the downside. My thesis was still upwards because, again, we want all these puts to expire worthless, right? So that's our goal, make these puts expire worthless. And on ES, I had this level, and this applies, again, to any stock. Doesn't matter if you're playing options, applies to everything. So in this thesis right here, before this giant green candle happened at 9:40, when you see this kind of consolidation, there's a lot of hesitancy to come and break this major 3660 level. And let's say it was something else. Let's say it was 160 on Apple, right? And you see this hesitation to break 160, and let's say this is like 162, and then this is like 164 right here, right? And then you're sitting there saying, hey, if they crack this 165 on Apple right here, the odds are that we're going to continue to go upwards to the next major zone, which in this case was above 3,700 up to this 3715, 3725 range on ES. You know, you could apply the same thing. Let's say this key level right here was 165 on Apple, and you said if it cracks this, I think we're going to go up here to the 170, 175 range, right? So that's same principle applies. It's irrelevant of what stock you're trading. In this case, my mistake was just not, I put a bid in, and I'm not going to go back and find it on the 1 minute, but it came up. I had a bid I joined the bid just below 3680. It came up, retested 3680, never came below it, left me behind and took off. And my mistake was not just keeping to my thesis and just market slapping right in this area, so that when it broke out, understanding I'm willing to risk about 4 points, knowing that the odds are we're going to go up 20 some odd points to hit this 3,700 range, right? And that was my timidity. A lot of you guys absolutely crushed it. I did pretty good today, but not as good as I should have because I got timid. I actually played the backside here, which was a little tricky. You had to wait for this candle close, which is really, you don't want to get in front of the train, right? And the train's moving up. I'm not trying to get in front of the train. I don't know about you. I'm not trying to get in front of the train. Let the train do whatever the hell it wants. I'm not getting in front of it. You can step in front of it. I'm not getting in front of it, right? So I actually got stopped out right here and said, no, I think my thesis is still good. So I'm willing to risk over this 37.25 level. So I actually got back in, understanding that I'm willing to lose this a little bit of money right here. Completely willing to lose it, understanding that I could get stopped and that could be the end of it, and that's cool. That's fine. I'm willing to risk that money. So I was able to take this short, and I rode it all the way down, back down to the 3690, which was another major level right here on these two tweezer tops here. This tweezer top was unable to break that 3690 range, so that was my goal. At first, I thought we were going to just keep melting, right? Especially right here. I was like, oh, fuck, like I could have held that, but thankfully, I got out at 3690. This got chewed up, and then the buyers came in, and they basically just crushed everybody chasing for the rest of the day, right? So how would you play this whole reversal here? Well, the reversal would be your typical trend line right there, right? This is your okay. This was just a retest of lower pricing for market makers to load cheap, right? This is what they want to do. They want to fake everybody out, cuck out all the bull chasers, and then they come down here and they do the same thing to short chasers. So all the bear chasers, the short chasers, the put chasers, this was the small pullback that you saw, and the only pullback that happened all day, as you can see here, the only pullback that happened all day was this pullback right here. So when you're in this situation, there's no need to get in front of the train. Don't get in front of the train. You're just going to get run over. I don't know about you. I'm not trying to get run over ever, like in any way, shape, and or form. I'm never trying to get run over. So I'm not trying to get in short anywhere except for this high quality setup. When this 5 minute candle closed and it came up and stopped me out, I actually got back in and said, no, we rejected the trend. We rejected this setup. We tried to go back into this little zone up here and we're unable to do so. So I went short again and rode the short down. And that was the best play I took all day. I should have gone long on this break, even in here, and just held it. There was no reason to get rid of it. This is a little choppy. If you're a range trader, great. Same thing right here. Range trader, great. I actually was playing this on paper and killed it. Should have played it real money, which is timidity. I was timid to take the trades because I was already green on the day, and I already pulled out the money I wanted from my small account. I should have just kept trading. There was no reason not to trade. So in this sense, you have to have the confidence to know that, hey, look, this is an A+ setup. This trend line break, it's only, we know they're going to keep trying to cuck the put holders and the short holders. We're just going to keep probably moving up if we break this trend line. This is the only hope that we have of potentially on to the short side. It's kind of cracking through some of these major levels, especially this 3680, which is what we said if we cracked earlier, we'd go long on, right? We said we'd go long on the 3680 break because that was our setup. So if we couldn't hold that break to the downside, that means there's buyers protecting this range. Again, applies to any stock. You see this setup, let's say this is let's say this is 162 on Apple and this is 161, and this was your breakout range over here. So if we come in and try twice to break this on the 5-minute chart, to break the 161 on Apple and we reclaim the 162, where do you think we're going? We're going to go back up to 165, 170 up here, right? It makes probably more sense in the options contract and on discussing stocks that are relevant to you guys. But the setup is the same. The setup is the exact same. Yeah, fake breakout did the same thing to me at 11:30. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hey, there you go. Yep. So I definitely could have played better today. I'm a little upset with myself on how I played. I totally could have played better. I had an amazing week. I'm really glad I did. I reset my small account back to really tiny, just $100. Actually, it's a little less than $100 because I got hit with the fees for CME, so the data fees. So there's like 80 some odd dollars in there or whatever. So that's how you should play, because look what happened the rest of the day. We just kept going. So when you have this bullish trend set up, every dip is an opportunity to buy as long as it holds up. So you could have bought this dip right here, 37.15, it's a good key level, and then put your, say, hey, if we break this wick right here, this indecision candle, if we go lower than that, I'm willing to risk this 5 points because I think we're just going to keep going. And what happens, 37.15, 37.25, 37.35, where you probably get out. You wouldn't really want to hold more than a 20-point move on ES or MES, so there's no real reason to hold that. But you could have, as soon as we came in and we started seeing these buyers buy this shit up at 37.30, that's another opportunity to go long for another 15, 20 points. And then you could have just held lottos all the way up. And the same applies to any stock. You could do the same thing. And when the trend is upwards, there's no need to get into the trend. This is why I keep going against the trend. There's no reason to get against the trend. That's why I keep stressing this 1 hour chart, right? So here's that 37.35 level I was talking about earlier. Look how we tried to come back below it, got chewed up and came back above. What do you think it's going to go next? We're clear, especially at the close of this candle, and then this candle refused to break lower. And now we have this move upwards because there's this gap here where, for the most part, except for this little range right here, there really wasn't. And as you see, we basically came in, back tested it, and it took off, right? So it came back tested, it took off. So this is now demand. If in your mind, you don't have to draw the box, but it's now demand. So same thing. Once we cleared it and confirmed it was support, you could have gone long and made another 20, 30 points right here. About 20 points right there. Keep the 1 hour and the 30-minute charts in your mind. This is a great setup. Reclaim 36.60. No reason not to take this. Ride it all the way up. Make 50 points, right? About 50 points all the way up. When you saw this candle refuse to break and we started climbing and reclaim 37.10, you can go long and ride this whole bitch up. Again, same thing. Sometimes you got to zoom out. Where I was a little too zoomed in today and a little too timid because of, it's Opex and oh my God, all this shit's happening. And there really wasn't a reason to do that, right? So let's talk about one last thing real quick. And it's VIX. In this case, I'm going to specifically discuss VIX slash VX. I'm sorry, slash VX. So the reason I want to talk about slash VX is because VX is the future. Slash VX is the futures traders. You can't trade VIX. You can't trade VIX, right? You can't trade it. It's an algorithm of math. It's literally mathematics, right? It's not actually a tradable thing. However, the futures on VIX are. Slash VX is the futures of VIX. Vengeful actually brought this up to me. I think he is in here. Yeah, he is in here. Vengeful brought this to me, and we noticed that although VIX was climbing, slash VX wasn't moving at all. You look at this. This is boring. There's a little bit of a push here, but everything gets stuffed. There was this pull down here as everything was kind of ripping, as you can see from the time frame. There's a little bit of a push up, and then it kind of came down. So it was very interesting to see that VIX was still going, and slash VIX wasn't. So here's still have the 30 level drawn. So here's VIX, right? Notice how VIX is pushing, right? Usually, not always, usually means that stocks are trying to come down. they didn't. They just kept going. I don't know if I can get ADDQ. I don't think I can get ADDQ on the advancers and decliners on Thinkorswim. So but the advancers and decliners, if you check the chart, actually just showed it basically going vertical nonstop all day. There was never a time of that's it. Yeah. ADD. Thank you. So here's advancers decliners right here. Thank you for that. Advancers decliners. Notice how we had this little bit of pullback, but then we just kept going all day. Does this show you like, hey, oh, I should go short? No. Where in here does it tell you to go short? This right here. This little, that's it. Right there. That's it. Everything else is going up. Then there's no reason to get in front of the train. Right? There's absolutely no reason to get in front of this train. If we're still climbing nonstop, what's the point of trying to short? You should be looking for long entries, not short entries. Which again, all of my losing trades were short entries, except for one, which was a well-timed short entry on this pullback right here. Here's your tweezer top. It's a 1 minute chart, so I know it's only 1 minute, but when I saw this hesitation, I actually got stopped out right here, and as it came back, that's when I got back in and said, I'm going to put my stop loss up here, and I rode this breakdown all the way down. So things to keep in mind all the time. Always keep this stuff in mind because you know that the direction is up. We know the trend is upwards. So your risk has to be accepted that the odds, especially once we failed to maintain this this breakdown, we rejected previous breakout, which again we said was the 3680 level, and we tried to break down below it and couldn't. Your thesis should flip back to saying we're going to most likely continue going up. Not that we are, nobody knows, but the odds are that we're going to continue to go up. And look what happened for the rest of the goddamn day. And even now we're breaking 3770, which is just fucking wild to even think about. We're breaking 3770 right now. There was never a reason to try to step in front of this train. So again, if I had played this a little smarter, I would have made an unbelievable amount of money. Here's the only major fake out. I think I had this drawn earlier and forgot to save it. This is one of the only major fake outs, but for the most part, it was just constantly moving up. You have a little bit of a pullback and get some consolidation because remember, their job is to steal your money. But for the most part, it's pretty obvious what the trend was. It's pretty obvious what you needed to be doing. You need to be looking for pullbacks for long entries, right? And again, now we're looking at the 1 hour chart. You're looking at, there is a little bit of hesitation right here at we'll call it 3775. That's a more reasonable range because that sits right there roughly. That's a more reasonable range. We break above that range on the hourly, the odds are that we are going to go test that 3800, right? There's not a lot of stuff preventing us, especially on the daily, from getting up there, except for definitively clearing this little bit right here from the recent pivot. The odds are that we're going to go test this range right up in here. It just makes sense. We clear 3820, we're probably going to go even higher. 3820, 3835, and then we're going to probably test this range right up in here around 38.78.5 to all the way up to here to 39.20-ish. That's the higher probability. It could come right here and just tank. But more than likely, the odds currently are that we're going to go test this trend line roughly the 3,800 and the 3,900 range, depending on how bullish we get in the next 2 weeks. That's the higher probability setup. So when you are confident in your setup, and I've talked about this the last couple sessions, just develop your thesis and don't worry. Like I kept joining the bid. I called it a couple times where I was joining the bid. Let me get back to the original 30 right here. So I was joining the bid right here at the 3680 break, and it basically like, and there's nothing wrong with this. And this is very rare. I don't get filled on this, but as you can see on the 1 minute, it came right up here, and obviously the candle is forming, so it's kind of wiggling around. I joined the bid, and it was like 3679.25, and it kind of came within like one tick or so, and left me behind. What was my mistake there? if I was confident in that setup, why didn't I just market buy? It wasn't like the candle was doing this, like these candles here were going, like that's sketchy. You don't want to be right in here trying to market buy. You can get filled pretty terribly, right? But in here, it was kind of just wiggling up and doing the normal like climbing action, especially once we broke this recent pivot right here. Like, why didn't I just market slap it and accept my risk down to the 3675 below that? Like, if we had failed this 3675, we came up here and failed it. The odds are that it's not going to go do that. And even if it does, it is no longer worth risking my real money for it, right? So what I should have done is just market slapped it, market buy, put my risk in, and accept the thesis that I have developed. I did this all week, so why did I hesitate now? Because I was just too focused on OPEC and, oh my God, they could totally, concern was AM highs. Not really. It was, OPEX was it, man. I won't lie. AM does it. This didn't freak me out right here. This especially on the 1 minute chart. This didn't freak me out. I was not really concerned about it. My thesis was perfectly intact. It was 100% OPEX that it really kind of scared me. I was like, I genuinely, it's the first time in a week and a half that I was genuinely just timid and I was very irritated. I wasn't irritated at the market. I was irritated at myself. I was very upset with myself for not understanding that my thesis was still intact and there was absolutely zero reason to get out of the trade, right? Again, my target would be roughly 3,700. So as soon as we got close to it, I'd probably get out. As soon as we bounced here, it'd be a good risk reward to go long again. And I could have ridden some more and then rid the backside too. So don't be timid. Develop your thesis, stick to it, be willing to risk your money, and don't let it control you, because look at what can happen afterwards, right? And it's the first time in like a week and a half, 2 weeks that I really let that get to me. We are entering a very strange zone, so be careful. There could be a lot of fuckery up here. I doubt it. I still see us going to the 3,800 plus range myself on futures, but definitely just be aware that, hey, we put in a huge bullish day, as you can see here on the daily chart. This is insane. This is crazy. Look at this day. Like, look at these 3 days. This day, and this. Here's CPI. This was your go signal. Came here and unable to hold that 3,600 meltdown, and we just refused to melt down afterwards. So develop your thesis, have the confidence to stick with it, respect your stop loss, and trade it, right? What we're looking for is continuation on the larger charts. It just applies for every single, as I showed you, every single stock. Doesn't matter if it's Amazon. If you're looking at Amazon, we're looking for this 120 crack and hold. We want to crack and hold 120, and the odds are that for the next couple of days, as long as the rest of the market, again, /ES, is bullish, this looks like a good level, 123 basically. So 123 cracks, we're going to go to 125 pretty easily. Right, I would see that happening. We crack that 123. We're going to test 125. We crack that. Looks like we'll probably, honestly, just go straight to about 130 as long as the bullish momentum maintains on Amazon. What else we got? Apple. A lot of people trade Apple and Microsoft. Huge setup here. That was real. This day was crazy, and this day was crazy. Here's CPI. I know everybody banked the fuck out that day. It was great. We cleared this 147.9. We'll call it 147.9. We'll probably go test that 150 range right there, roughly. So right there, as you can see off to the left, I'm not going to move my cursor. So if you look at the very far left of the screen, you'll see that the top of that candle sits at about 150. It's also a major psych level. I'll just fucking put one right there. Let's just do that, just so people can see it. Like right there, you see how well price action reacts to all that. So the odds are that if we can crack that, we'll call it 148. We crack 148 right here. We're most likely going to test 150. We crack that. It looks like we're probably going to around here, the 154 level, somewhere in this range, 154 on a little bit on either side, give or take. Microsoft, same thing. You're looking at these downtrends. Don't forget, we're still in the downtrend in the big picture. So, you can see it. I shouldn't even have to. You can see it. We're still in this downtrend. So be aware that we're still in a downtrend. We need confirmation that we're no longer in a downtrend. Keep an eye on SPY and QQQ for those instances. I think I might still have those up on my trading view. Let's see if I can pull that up right here. So here is QQQ. We're looking for very similar setup to Apple and Microsoft, right? If we can kind of crack this recent pivot high right here, We're probably going to go up here, test that, come up here and test this around 284. We crack that. We'll probably move to the 290 range right in here. That looks like a good spot, like right up in here. Looks like 288 really. So this is 280. We crack, yeah, so I'm sorry, 278 down here. I'm pretty blind, so you'll have to excuse me. We crack this 277.5, 277 range. Probably go up here, test this 280. Crack that, we're going to go higher, right? Same thing. It's the same principles. If you notice, I'm basically repeating myself. It's the same thing. We crack this little pivot right here. Probably going to go test this pivot right up here. We crack that. There's a psych number at 380 right there. We crack that. Probably go to about here. We crack that. We're going to go up to about there, etc. So you can go on your daily charts and look at them and apply the same principles, just so you have a bigger picture of what's going on. And don't be afraid. You develop your thesis, understand your thesis, and say, hey, as long as I'm that my thesis is still holding, I don't see a reason to get out of the trade. There's no reason to get out of the trade. There's no reason to panic. You can either just move your stop loss or keep your stop loss where it is. I will post some key levels for the futures traders. I'm going to clear these out most likely and redo a bunch of them, and I'll post some key levels for the futures traders. That's about it. That's all I really wanted to cover. I've got a couple things I still got to do in real life here. I got to go cut down a tree. That should be fun. Fight some hornets. That's not fun. And hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow is our time to get away from the screens. If you have the opportunity, please get away from the screens. Sunday is our prep day. That's when we do a lot of our prep work. The futures opens at 6 p.m. So we get to see kind of where everything's going. The futures traders get to trade the early sessions, the extended hours or electronic hours, however you want to view it. And then on Monday, we'll get right back to it and kill it. So that's it for me. I hope you all have a fantastic time. Let me end this recording.